Riots continued last night, as they have been for, I don't know, what are we on, like day 128? But this time, something significant happened. While I have a simple story for you, 4 people arrested from hostile crowd at Portland police building, a video going viral shared by Andy No is actually much more alarming. In this tweet, Andy No says, "Portland tonight. Black Lives Matter Antifa rioters surround officer who pulled over a driver. The driver flees. And when the officer tries to follow him, rioters stand in front of his motorcycle and one gets hit." I can play a bit of the video for you now, and we can see this is not a riot cop. This is an angry leftist mob. They're standing in front of a cop, and there you go. The driver flees. A motorcycle police officer pulled someone over for likely some infraction, or, we don't really know why. A roving band of leftists intervened. The driver flees. The officer watches him take off, and it looks like the cop's like, "What?" When the cop tries jumping on his bike, they block the cop. Someone gets hit. And then you hear that ever so faithful medic screaming, "Oh no, we stood in front of a motorcycle and disrupted police activity." And now someone fell over. I don't believe they actually got hit. I don't think any of that was particularly bad in terms of injury or anything like that. It's starting to feel really purgy, though. And I mean it. Look, okay, maybe not that much, but we're inching ever closer to, I don't know, lawlessness. Straight up lawlessness. So let me make this really, really clear so I can get my point across. And then I want to show you the story about what's going on in Portland. These are not protests. This cop is not a riot cop. He was just some cop who is pulling someone over. Routine police work. Now, I get it. Most of us don't like getting pulled over. You get a ticket. It's kind of annoying. But it's a part of how the system works. It's not perfect. We got a problem with quotas and things like that. And sometimes, the cops just generating revenue for the city or the state. I get all of those arguments. But sometimes they pull someone over who might be drunk. Someone who could seriously injure someone. And now to this. This is where we're going. Because nothing is getting done to stop these people. Save what Donald Trump has done. This is really interesting. U.S. Attorney says Portland police will remain federal deputies against mayor's wishes. Donald Trump, he made a bold and decisive move, and the police have been deputized as U.S. Marshals. We now know this came at the request of the police. So I'll tell you what. While I can give Donald Trump and his administration credit for making this move, which seems to be helping, it's actually the police who requested it. It wasn't Trump's idea. Still, Trump's willingness to enact it, or I should say his administration, because I don't know to what extent he was involved, is brilliant. For those that are not familiar with what this means, it means that if someone gets arrested by a Portland police officer, the feds intervene to charge them. Or I shouldn't say intervene, the feds will just charge them. Because the Portland cops, they're now federal deputies. And it started with the Oregon State Police. The Oregon State Police requested deputization from the feds. Why? You see, early on, they were claiming that Trump's secret police were rounding people up. So the governor said, how about we negotiate a deal? We'll bring in the state police to deal with the riots and protect the federal building. You pull your federal officers back to help calm things down. The DHS then had their marshals and their PACT officers, this is a group of different agencies, remain inside the courthouse that was being attacked by Antifa. State police then started going out and making arrests. And the local DA started releasing all of these people without charge. Within hours, they were cut loose and back on the street. Eventually, the Oregon State Police retreated. Straight up. We're done. And they said, if we arrest these people and you just release them, you're putting us in danger. How annoying would that be? It's like, you ever play a video game and you play for several hours, you get really far and then the game crashes or the power goes out and you're like, I lost everything, and you don't even want to play anymore. You're like, everything I just did was erased. Ugh. You throw the controller down and you just don't want to play. I can only imagine it's much worse when you're actually trying to enforce the law and you have a district attorney who's releasing the people you watch commit crimes. Well, guess what? The city is now begging the police, please stop, de-deputize these officers because our rioters are getting charged and arrested by the feds. And the U.S. attorney's like, no, we're going to charge these people because you're not doing it. It's really strange to me that amid the ongoing riots, and I know a lot of people are probably like, oh, riots are still happening. Riots are still happening. that all of this going down, and for some reason the city is saying, hey, you know that thing you did that actually worked? Please stop doing that. Whose side are they on? Are they on the side of regular people, small business owners, families, or are they on the side of the violent extremists? Apparently, it's obvious to anybody paying attention. Let's read the story. And we have a response from one of these far leftists in their government. U.S. attorney says Portland police will remain federal deputies against mayor's wishes. The decision was made jointly with the U.S. Marshal for Oregon, who deputized the police ahead of a far-right rally. U.S. Attorney Billy Williams said Wednesday, Portland police will retain their status as federal deputies, despite Mayor Ted Wheeler's request to revoke that status. In a statement, Williams said the action was needed because city leaders haven't done enough to quell violence at protests. Quote, the federal deputation, is that what it is? Deputation, supports frontline law enforcement officers and their families in a way that they have not yet seen from City Hall. Portlanders and Oregonians in general are sick of the boarded up and dangerous conditions prevalent in downtown Portland due to a lack of leadership. Now, I don't know if they deputized literally every single Portland officer, which is, well, important considering in Portland, a cop was pulling someone over and a mob intervened. Now, that's something I've not seen before. I mean, you straight up have roving bands of lawlessness disrupting general police work outside the confines of their normal riot. It's spreading. It will get worse. Crime is skyrocketing. This is, we're not really in the purge or anything like that, but aren't we getting to that point of lawlessness where a cop can't even give someone a ticket for who knows what, like improper lane change or some other dumb thing? The current dispute is the aftermath of a police response that brought federal, state, and local law enforcement together last weekend. Oregon Governor Kate Brown declared a state of emergency ahead of a September 26 far-right rally in Portland and placed law enforcement under a unified command consisting of the Oregon State Police and Multnomah County Sheriff's Office. As part of that preparation, the U.S. Marshal Service federally deputized 22 sheriff's deputies and 56 members of the Portland Police Bureau's Rapid Response Team. So not regular cops. Rapid Response is like this. I don't want to say they're like the riot control guys. As OPB first reported Tuesday, the federal deputy designation did not end with the far-right rally. However, it extends through the end of the year, a decision made by the U.S. Marshals, according to Oregon State Police Captain Timothy Fox. Federal officials' interest in Portland extends far beyond last weekend's Proud Boys rally, and deputizing local police fits with a wider strategy by the U.S. Department of Justice to harshly punish people who have participated in racial justice protests that have persisted for months. I'm going to stop you right there, OPB. Perhaps you did not get the memo from the Associated Press. We're not calling them protests anymore. AP guidelines say it's now unrest. And that means the unresters, I guess you'd call them, are getting arrested and charged. The reason why they're calling it unrest, and I actually agree with this to an extent, is because they're not protests. You see, for the longest time, they've been saying peaceful protests, peaceful, 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 but they're not. They're clashing with police. Now, maybe some of these moments don't reach the level of a full-blown riot with windows being smashed out, but if you're fighting with cops and you're running through the streets, it's unrest. Now, I think we can call it a riot when it's a riot, and we'll call it an unrest when it's just the general nonsense from these people. They say in a statement released Wednesday on Facebook, Oregon State Police Superintendent Travis Hampton said the federal deputy status was an important part of law enforcement strategy to supply accountability to violent extremists at the September 26 rally. But he also asked Williams to keep the federal status in place, despite calls from local leaders to end them immediately. Hampton said keeping officers federally deputized allows increased prosecutorial discretion if rioters should assault an officer. It came from the state police, said Portland Police Bureau Deputy Chief Chris Davis. The way I heard about it was Travis Hampton called me and said this was happening as part of the plan for this past weekend's events. The conversation was not phrased in a way where it would sound like a request. It sounded like that was the direction that he was going. That would have been well within his prerogative as the person put in charge of that event by the governor. 50 Oregon State Police troopers were also federally deputized in August when they assumed security responsibilities outside the federal courthouse in downtown Portland as part of a deal to end the federal law enforcement response to protests. Those troopers will keep their status as federal deputies for 1 year. I do think it's important to stress We have to make sure that executive authority is rescinded at a certain point, right? They should. Okay, I like the idea of deputizing them. So because the DA isn't doing his job, but at a certain point, these powers need to be returned to the local law enforcement. This deputization needs to expire because we do not want people to gain more and more executive authority. In a statement, Hampton went so far as to suggest he will refuse to send Oregon State Police troopers into Portland if the deputations are revoked. OSP troopers will not serve the city of Portland in any capacity that needlessly endangers them or their colleagues. Look, bravo to the cops. It is the fault of the feckless politicians, Mayor Ted Wheeler and his pathetic DA and the rest of the people in Portland who want this. Apparently they want Trump to win, I suppose. Hampton's statement Wednesday is the latest sign of a growing feud between local law enforcement and the elected leaders and residents to whom they are accountable. Hampton and Portland police have been openly critical of Multnomah County District Attorney Mike Schmidt over his decision not to bring low-level charges against protesters. While Schmidt has charged numerous protesters with assault on a public safety officer, Deputy Chief Davis said the federal charges bring a harsher penalty. Quote, "The DA has been diligent about prosecuting these cases whenever he can. The federal system has a little bit stronger penalties for attacks on federal officers. If you realize the kind of attack that we've seen daily on Portland police officers since May will result in potentially federal prison time, I would think that would tend to make people think twice before they threw a full can of soup or a brick or a firebomb at a police officer." I don't think it will. I mean, maybe some of these people have panicked, and that's why I don't think it's that they're going to back down. I think that by charging these people federally, you've taken them off the street. Some of these people are in prison. Some of these people were charged with attempted murder. They say the federal government's decision to deputize local law enforcement also comes after a protracted battle this summer over the presence of federal agents. This we understand. Quote, "Governor Brown put Superintendent Hampton and Sheriff Mike Reese in charge of the Joint Incident Command Structure this weekend with the specific goal of keeping Oregonians safe during Saturday's planned demonstrations by white supremacist groups," which is a lie because the Proud Boys aren't white supremacists. Oregon State Police and Hampton ultimately report to the governor's office. Brown's office has declined to answer questions about why federal deputations should extend through the end of the year, saying city and county leaders who want to rescind the federal deputy status can request that change. But as Wednesday's announcement from U.S. Attorney Williams demonstrates, those requests may be rejected. The closer relationship between local police and federal prosecutors has angered some. This is a coup by an unelected U.S. attorney. Juan Chavez, a civil rights attorney with the Oregon Justice Resource Center, wrote in a statement, "It's unlawful and flies in the face of federalism. We're being sold out to Trump all because the state and city don't want to take on the police union." A spokesperson for the U.S. Marshal Service told OPB it's unusual for local law enforcement to be deputized as federal officers for such an open-ended period of time. Typically, deputations are for a specific operation, such as tracking down a fugitive, and end when the operation ends. But the riots are still happening. What should any of us do? Should the people of Portland sit back and do nothing? I don't like the idea that my tax dollars have to go to Trump sending feds into Portland because the Portland police won't do their jobs. So how about you deputize the cops so the people of Portland and Oregon, their taxes will go towards actually policing this stuff. And if you got a problem with your local police, sue them. Not the police, I'm sorry. The police seem to be doing their job. If you have a problem with your local government, your DA, sue them because they're basically stealing your money. I'll put it this way. If someone came to me and said, you got to pay for a fire department, and then a fire started and they said, we're not putting that fire out, then why am I giving you money? Then give me the money back. That's what they're doing. So you know what? When Trump sends in the feds, I find it frustrating because those are our tax dollars and we don't live in Oregon because the Oregon police can't do their jobs because the DA keeps releasing these people. So here we have a compromise. Local police will make the arrests, and then our tax dollars will go to federal prosecutors to deal with the rioters. You know what? That I can accept. If they won't do their jobs, I will continue to criticize them and demand they do, but at least this cuts the costs, right? They say Brown's spokespeople have also declined to answer when the governor learned that state and local officers had been granted ongoing federal deputy status. Wheeler, who is Portland's police commissioner in addition to being mayor, said he was not aware that designating local police as federal deputies would last through the end of the year until they had taken place. City Commissioner Chloe Udley and Joe Ann Hardesty have issued similar calls for the federal deputy status to be revoked. Aw, they're begging, stop. Don't arrest people and charge them for the crimes they commit. I would ask that until that happens, those officers not be at responding to the protest, Hardesty wrote in a tweet. Portlanders have been clear. We don't need more deputized officers. We need de-escalation. That's your fault. You're weirdos running through the streets. Commissioner Joe Ann Hardesty tweeted, as the details over the 56 deputized PPP officers continue to unfold, I want to be clear where I stand. Under no conditions should these deputized officers be out on Portland streets or responding to protests. Why? Excuse me, why? What's wrong with being deputized by the feds? Can you give me an answer? Are these people committing crimes? Yes. Are they being charged for those crimes? Yes. And will they have their day in court? Yes. Okay. I should clarify. Is there probable cause to believe they committed a crime? Yeah, they're out at a riot. Cops are fighting with people, and there's videos of this. Now, I don't know each individual person who was arrested. Some of them may be innocent, in which case you are innocent until proven guilty, which means you go to trial. That means you get charged. So what's the problem, Commissioner? If the people get arrested and charged, they're not sent to prison immediately. They will stand up in trial as the system was supposed to work. Commissioner Joe Ann Hardesty goes on. Until the deputation is rescinded, I am asking my colleagues to join me in demanding the police commissioner and police chief pull the deputized officers immediately. This is a clear attempt by the federal government to take over our local police force, circumvent DA Schmidt's protest arrest policy, and threaten everyone's rights to free speech and assembly. You don't care about free speech. None of these people do. These people are committing crimes. Oh, well, okay. There's probable cause to suggest. I want to be very careful because I'm a big fan of the Constitution. Okay, you got to prove them guilty before I'll say they definitively committed crimes. She says, I do not take any of this lightly. I'm appalled that a request for mutual aid support was used to undermine local governance of police, and that those who made this decision are not around to deal with the repercussions Portlanders are now grappling with. I will not stand for deputized officers on our streets. We must act now. No, you do not get the luxury. Across this country, we are seeing crime waves. NYC's crime wave reaches new height as this year's murder tally surpasses all of 2019. No, absolutely not. You know, a press conference was just had for Donald Trump. His doctor is speaking, and I really wanted to I want to just talk about this press conference. It's really important, but this news needs to be brought up. I am livid in seeing this video from Andy No of these people stopping a regular a motorcycle cop from doing his routine job. I get it, man. I've gotten bunk tickets. In fact, the only moving violations I've ever received driving were bunk. I got a speeding ticket when I wasn't speeding. What did I get? I got 2 speeding tickets when I wasn't speeding. I was not speeding. Actually, to be fair, I'll tell you this. The first time I got a speeding ticket, I was driving down a dark road at 3 a.m. on my way to work during the early morning shift when all of a sudden I had headlights nearly rear-ending me. I was going the speed limit. So I had this person with the lights shining in the back of my car, like as close as physically possible. And so I put on my right lane, my right signal. I gave the car a little bit of gas to make some clearance as I switched to the right lane so that this person could pass. As soon as I creeped over the speed limit by like 2 miles an hour, pulled over. And the cop was like, the guy behind me was a cop. And then he said, you shouldn't speed when a cop's behind you, buddy. And I was like, dude, you almost hit me. Like you were riding me. So like I was scared. I was trying to create space. And he went, too bad. And he gave me a ticket. And I tried fighting it. And they said, so you admit you were speeding. Okay, fine. Take that one. Okay. I was once exiting off of Lakeshore Drive in Chicago, where the speed limit is 45 miles an hour. And I was exiting on Belmont Avenue going 30 miles an hour, slowing down to exit. And I got pulled over. And I said, is there a problem? He said, you were speeding. I was like, I was exiting. I was not speeding and I was slowing down. And I got a bunk ticket and they suspended my license for these. Yeah, I'm not a fan of this stuff, but I tell you what, I am not going to call for the system to be upended because I've had bunk tickets. I am not going to sit back as this stuff gets worse and worse every day. They're not just protesting anymore. They're not just going to people's homes. Mark my words, I'm not going to go that far. I am warning you that this could escalate. This could escalate. Crime is already up. And when they start disrupting general policing with impunity, and they have allies in government trying to stop the one thing that was helping, Heaven forbid if Joe Biden wins, because the Democrats are negotiating with these people. This is what you get with these current Democratic politicians. And so you know what? They need to be reminded by the American people, we won't allow roving bands of vigilantes to stop routine police work, to kill people like they did in Portland. That's Antifa. Nor will I allow Joe Biden, who said Antifa doesn't exist, it's an idea. Nor will I allow him, nor will I give him my vote. And I certainly hope you won't either. Think about what that means. When they say, Mr. President, there's a roving band of individuals attacking people in the street. Really? Yes, we think they're Antifa. Antifa doesn't exist. And then he walks away. Is that what we're going to get? A president who refuses to acknowledge what we're seeing with our very eyes. A president who would support the extremists who have allowed 30 plus people to die in these riots. An avowed Antifa shot and killed a Trump supporter. An avowed Antifa firebombed an ICE facility and then got killed himself in the attack. There have been many avowed Antifa who have beaten and injured people. People like Andino, for instance. So are we going to sit back and say, okay, Joe Biden, there's no Antifa. You can be president while we watch this? Nah, man. At least I can say this. If Joe Biden becomes president, the riots probably will be emboldened and they'll go around. It won't be riots, I think. I think it'll be morality police. If Biden gets elected, these people will just go door to door and threaten you and do things like this. So they won't call it riots. But I'll tell you what, he's not going to send in the feds. He's not going to deputize the officers. So at least my tax dollars won't be going to Oregon's problems. Although it'll then only be a matter of time before the morality police come to other areas. And I'm not interested in that. So I'll tell you what. I wish Donald Trump the best. I hope he's doing okay with COVID. And I really hope he pulls through this because I do not want President Biden. I tell you what, I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. over at youtube.com/Timcast. It is a different channel. Thank you all so much for hanging out, and I will see you all next time.